got half the 1 min charts.
What's up, Anthony? How's it going?
I'm good, man. I am so good, actually.
Yeah?
I am so. I think it's finally like settling in that we're so close to the merge. Like, it's no longer a kind of, we're close, but we're not close. We have an actual date,
Mm-hmm.
and like it's so close. It's like 3 weeks away or something, and I've been talking about it every bloody day almost for like the last however long, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not crazy. We're actually going to merge, and yeah, I mean, I feel similar to how I felt with 1559, right? Where we spoke about it for so long, and we finally got it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's like child's play compared to the merge, man. Like I think people don't realize like I was hyped about that. We were all hyped about that, but it's like completely different compared to the merge. The merge is like the thing. I think proof of stake is like the major reason most of us got into Ethereum, I
Right.
think.
Yeah. Yeah, that it definitely significantly. It's like a new innovation that made us all say like, aha. Okay, what would you ascribe the chances of the merge going just like as well as we want it to?
Uh Pretty high up there. I mean, if I'm basing it on the test nets, the test nets like didn't go perfectly, obviously, but that's because they're test nets. I would say like 95+% chance it's going to go as we
Right.
expect. But people have different expectations because like there could be an instance where 10% of the network or 15% of the network just is offline, right, at time of the merge. Like validators are just offline because they misconfigured or they've done something that they shouldn't have done and they're not on the network anymore. But like they're going to very quickly fix that because
Mm-hmm.
there's real money on the line for them to be offline in that scenario. So and that's not even a merge failure. Like
Right.
the chain would keep ticking along, we'd still keep finalizing, so it doesn't actually matter.
Right.
But I think that if that happens, if say if like 10% of the network goes offline, instantly there's going to be FUD everywhere on Twitter. It's like, oh my god, like the merge
There's
failed.
gonna be
blah,
FUD no
blah,
matter
blah.
what.
Yeah,
I think if the chain doesn't split and then everything becomes just stabilized, like we drop off like 20% of the network, but then we get it almost all of it back within 48 hours, and there's no chain split. I'll call that like a complete success, right? And I'm also.
I mean, I would even call it a
6.
I would even call it a success even if we like 20% of the network went offline, because I think, I mean, I go as far as saying if as long as we have more than 67% of the network online, I consider that a success,
Right.
because that's the finalization threshold. Obviously, we want much more than that to be online. And I mean, not even the worst test net we had was Girly, I think, in terms of participation falling off, but that fixed itself within a few hours, and we were back up to, like over 90%, and that's on a test net. Like on mainnet, even if we get a large participation drop off, it's going to get fixed extremely quickly. I'm pretty sure like everyone that's running a validator is going to be monitoring it or nursing it during the merge transition to make sure everything goes well. And everyone wants to see the pandas too, right? So yeah, I'm not concerned, and we've tested it so much, man. Like I don't think people realize how many like shadow forks, test nets, and like short-lived tests that we've done so much. You can only test so much. We know what works. The issues normally stem from that misconfiguration, which means that some validators go offline. That's the biggest issue. And obviously sometimes clients have trouble talking to each other because there's like 9 clients now, like 5 on the consensus layer side, 4 on the execution layer side. But that's nuance, and Twitter doesn't like nuance. Twitter just wants, did it go successfully?
Yes or no?
Is ETH going to pump?
Bull or bear? And so like, okay, the reason why I asked for a percentage, and like me and Ryan gave the same percentages on the weekly roll up, like 95% plus like probability of like complete success. And then did you see Eric Wall's poll tweet not too long ago? It was like A for complete success, B for chain split or something bad or unexpected, or C, postpone and not doing it. And if you add B and C together, the two bad outcomes, you get something like 33% of people said that outcome. And then like 60% of 50% of people said as expected, and the rest were results, right? And so like me, you, Ryan, the people who pay attention to these things, also the permabulls, are like 95% probability it's going to work. And then like if you take Eric Wall's like Twitter following as like maybe a more average, he's followed by like a general like wide cohort of people. The general crypto Twitter is pricing in like 50% success and like 33% like something bad happens or it gets postponed. And so like by that, not priced in, right?
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's funny
if we're
because
right.
like,
if we're right.
the priced in thing is always really funny to me, because I don't know if people realize just how many people think that the merge is actually still not happening. Like, I know it's silly to say, but because it has been, like, proof of stake Ethereum has been quote unquote delayed so many times, right? Because it has been a very long time coming, because it has been spoken about for a very long time, anyone who's not paying attention to Ethereum finds it very hard to believe that this is it. This is actually going to happen this time. Right. That's alpha in of itself. There's also people who now believe that Ethereum's transition to proof of stake is like its death sentence because of the censorship concerns and things like that, right? And they're just now learning about the fact that blockchains can censor you, or miners and validators can censor you, right? When, I mean, we've known about this for a very long time, and they also haven't paid attention to like Ethereum. And I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, the Beacon chain only has a deposit withdrawal queue just to pump the price of ETH. They didn't even know about the queue. So, like, I think people who pay attention to Ethereum just don't realize how bad that information asymmetry is, and that's all pure alpha. Like, if the merge was priced in, like fully priced in, then you would assume that everyone knew every single aspect of the merge, like every single bull kind of property of the merge, which is not true at all. They don't even, like, it's not even, it's kind of funny when you think about it, because they're not even aware of, like, the fact, or a lot of them don't even believe it's going to happen. There's still that misconception that there's going to be all the staked ETH unlocking at the merge, right? Which is just that actually prevents people from buying, right? Like, because they're like, oh, I don't want to get dumped on. And then when they realize post merge that nothing's unlocking, nothing's being dumped, they're going to be like, what the hell, right? And then it's also a de-risking thing too, I think, for big money. They're like, they don't want to get in before.
That's real. Yeah.
It's definitely real. And that's fine. That's actually totally fine.
Real as in like rational.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of just funny when you think about all of it together and all the moving parts to it. And I mean, and also on top of that, like, even it's funny. I was thinking back to the podcast, the first podcast you guys did with Hal Press, and how he made me even more bullish, even though I had been writing about Ethereum and being bullish on Ethereum and been investing my whole life in it for like years, and I never thought about it the way he did. So if he can make me more bullish, right, like, then that means there's plenty of people out there who are still not bullish enough.
Right, exactly, yeah. And just on like that information asymmetry, KP Singh in the chat says, I told my investor friends that the merge is happening. They're like, yeah, it's been happening for the last 4 years. And then they say, no, it's actually happening. And like, that's got to be like the average case of the average crypto person who doesn't consume like specialized Ethereum media, I would say. Like, it's like the average crypto person is just like, the proof of stake has always been happening. It's always been happening since like 2015. It's never actually happening. And so like the fact that it's actually going through this time and actually scheduled with a TTT date, like that's actually fair enough. It's like, it's the anomaly that is true. But I mean, this is why it pays to stick around and pay attention and look under the hood of things. Like, you get to see this coming from a mile away.
Yeah, and as I said, I don't necessarily blame these people if they've been hearing about it for so long and it hasn't happened, because if you're not paying attention to it, then to you it's kind of like something you've heard a million times that hasn't happened. It's like the boy who cried wolf, so to speak, right? So when it does happen, I think that's going to really kick a lot of people and be like, wow, they actually did it, right? They actually became a proof of stake Ethereum. You know, there are people out there who don't even know that proof of stake is live as a separate chain, which is just, it's just funny when you think about that as well. But yeah, I think I don't blame people necessarily for still being in disbelief, but again, that's a source of kind of like not priced in alpha, I guess, so to speak, right?
Yeah. So for the people watching on the YouTube, if you're in the Daily Gwei Discord channel or the Bankless Discord channel, we actually have a people in the Zoom with us just hanging out. And so Christina says in the Zoom chat, well, now Bitcoiners admit that the merge will happen, but they keep on claiming that the 4 mega stakers controlling the network, Kraken, Binance, Coinbase, and Lido, will force censoring transactions by governance, right? And so, like, the nice thing about Bitcoiners is that, like, their FUD is at least something to talk about. And, like, even though, like, the FUD is, like, usually almost overblown, like, they are forcing the conversation. And like, yeah, like people like you, me, all these like core developers have like thought about like, yeah, what about censorship? And we've thought about this for years now, and it's been part of like the development roadmap. And then the Bitcoiners are like just raising the questions, thinking that it's like real FUD. But like it does allow us to like have these conversations that force the conversations into the mainstream, that all like these people that came in the last year or 2 years that haven't been a part of these conversations. Like we haven't had a significant censorship conversation since like the last bear market, when we were bored, so we would talk about anything. And so I will give the Bitcoiners credit. Like, thank you for elevating this conversation. And like, okay, now people are top of mind. If we were just like, if we made like a random censorship episode on Bankless, it wouldn't have landed like it would have landed when we are doing the one that we're coming out on Monday with Justin Drake, right? Like, and so like now people are like, oh, Ethereum censorable, and so like, okay, well, no, let's go make it. Let's Drake, come on, like we need some help. And so he comes in, and now we make a censorship episode, and everyone's gonna listen to it, and everyone's gonna like, oh no, there's these things called proposer builder separation. There's these things called like censorship resistant lists. Like there's all these mechanisms that people aren't aware of, that think that Ethereum is just like naive to, but no. We've been thinking about this for a while. We're just thinking about 100 other things. And now because of the Bitcoiner FUD, it's like time to talk about this.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't ever really agree with how Bitcoiners frame this sorts of stuff, because obviously they're trying to frame it as like this existential negative for Ethereum that's going to break the Ethereum network. And, you know, they were right all along about everything. They always love to do that. But you're right. They do end up forcing the conversation, if only for us to kind of like correct the FUD that, as you said, we've already had discussions about, right? Like they do force us to just kind of like instate everything and reiterate our beliefs and our knowledge to the wild, and it actually helps us. So I don't know if they realize that they're doing that, because they're definitely not trying to help Ethereum. They're definitely trying to, they want actually FUD Ethereum, and yeah, they want Ethereum to suffer damage from it. But yeah, I've never, I mean, I have from time to time, but like, I don't really tend to think about it as a positive. But if you think about it like that, you can kind of come to the conclusion that them forcing the conversation is probably like a overall positive, because there are negatives to it. The negatives are the fact that there's so much noise. Like, it's just insane how many people just don't realize that censorship is possible, no matter what network it is, no matter what it is, proof of work, proof of stake, because these networks are censorship resistant, not censorship proof. Like, there's a key terminology there. And I don't think even Bitcoiners have ever even claimed that Bitcoin is censorship proof. That's how like important it is to be accurate with that terminology, because censorship resistance is at the heart of it. But at the end of the day, like, it's I mean, even in proof of stake, it's extremely hard to punish for censorship, if not impossible, without a social intervention, right? Like, because there's no objective way for the protocol to see that censorship is happening, especially if, for example, you wanted to punish validators for not including transactions in blocks. The protocol doesn't see that at all. Like, humans have to see that. Humans have to crawl for that and then average it out. But
you can, the protocol can objectively see if there's censorship because of irregular transaction ordering. And I mean, I guess we might be splitting hairs, because like what you're saying is like the Ethereum protocol doesn't care what transactions get included in it. But like part of this like Justin Drake episode that we did is like, yeah, you can actually objectively prove when there is, maybe it's from the social layer though, you can objectively prove when there is transaction censoring, because like higher gas fee transactions are ignored.
Yeah, exactly. You have to do that from the social layer, though. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can do it objectively, but the protocol itself needs help, right?
From the perspective of the protocol, it doesn't know.
Yeah, and maybe we figure it out in the future. Maybe there are technology solutions to this, but right now there isn't. And the thing is that it's even worse under proof of work, because there's no way to surgically punish censoring validator miners. And the thing is if you're going to punish them, then the only way to do it is to change the hashing algorithm, which punishes everyone, punishes even the honest miners, which honestly, like, this has been talked about for a very long time. I remember Vlad Zamfir, who a lot of people won't even know who he is, because he hasn't been very active in Ethereum
for so long now.
Yeah, but he was one of the principal architects of early proof of stake Ethereum, and was pretty deep in Ethereum, and was very well known back in the day. But he has a famous quote where he said that, you know, if there is an attack on the network under proof of stake, we burn your ASIC farm down, basically. Like, whereas in proof of work, Bitcoin, for example, if you burn the ASIC farm down, you don't just burn one, you burn all of them,
right,
because you have to change the hashing algorithm.
Right, you
so
like shoot your entire army in the head, and then go start an army from scratch.
Yes, exactly. So that to me has always been a big draw or proof of stake, that surgical punishment for people who, or validators that we consider to be attacking the network. And it's not just a subjective thing. It can also be done in protocol, where if a validator is double signing, surround voting, you know, doing things that they shouldn't be doing, they get penalized for that. And other people don't get penalized for that. So I think that it's very important when considering the trade-offs of proof of work and proof of stake and things around censorship, like what tools we actually have, because I think objectively we have better tools in proof of stake to recover from these sorts of stuff than proof of work does. Even though proof of stake has its own trade-offs, it's not perfect. Like it's got its own trade-offs compared to proof of work. There's a big benefit that we get for those trade-offs at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's two directions I want to go in. There's one where like, yeah, Bitcoin has this problem with like removing its own censoring, but also like it's probably not going to be censored in the first place because it's just not that useful. And so like, okay, well, since I've already opened up that door, the argument here is that like, yeah, Bitcoin has problems, just like you said, with like if there are miners doing the censoring, there's no way to selectively target those miners and kick them out of the network because all ASICs are the same. The Bitcoin protocol can't determine who's doing censoring; it just adds a block to the blockchain. But then the Bitcoiner argument is that like, well, yeah, but like nation states are never gonna like ban Bitcoin because it's like it's just 21 million units, right? Like there's no tumbler. Like the OFAC did ban a Bitcoin tumbler, but it was like a centralized app layer thing that was like nothing to do with the protocol. And so like the Bitcoin argument is like, yeah, like Bitcoin is so like innocuous. Close enough. Yeah. That like, it's just going to like slip into the financial system, like slip under the Federal Reserve. And it's like, there's no stopping it because like, you know, there's no like legal precedent for, and so like sweet, like it gets adoption that way. But also like the only way you get that is from being impotent, like not like you don't like, sure, I guess you don't have that problem, but you don't have DeFi. Like the reason why Ethereum is getting targeted is because it has unstoppable applications. And like even Nick Carter said this on one of his podcasts, is that like Ethereum is like the new like spearhead of like the cypherpunk movement, because provably by the fact that OFAC is going after Tornado Cash, the unstoppable application. And so like there's something there where like if the nation state is offended, you know you're on the right track. Like you're going in the right direction because you're doing things that the nation state doesn't like. And so like there's probably a balance here. And John Charbonneau from Delphi Digital made this like nice XY axis, whereas like the vertical axis is how useful you are, and then the horizontal axis is like how easy to regulate you are, or how worth regulating you are. And like the more utility you have, the more like reasons you have to be regulated. And then there's like another axis, the Z axis, which is how regulatable are you. And like the idea is that you're balancing, like trying to optimize for becoming the most useful possible, the most unregulatable possible, but also the thing most worth regulating. And if you can optimize for those three things and still remain censorship resistant, like you've maxed out the spectrum. And like that's where I see Ethereum is. And this whole, like, again, this episode with Justin Drake will explain how we actually bake in censorship resistance, complete censorship resistance, all the way down to, like, both the non-protocol level, the protocol stack above it, but then all the protocol itself. And so, like, in my mind, it's like we're maximizing utility, maximizing how unregulatable we are, and also, by proxy of maximizing utility, we are also, like, saying we're super duper, like, the nation state wants to regulate you, implying that, like, you're on the right track here.
Yeah, and I think on that line of argument as well, it's all trade-offs. Like you could argue that Ethereum has a larger censorship attack surface because you can do more on Ethereum's base layer than you can on Bitcoin's base layer. And then Bitcoiners will argue and say, well, that's why we don't have anything on the base layer. We just have like BTC on the base layer, and then we do everything else at layer 2. It's like, okay, but you're extremely limited by doing that. Like you can't even build expressive layer 2s on Bitcoin because of the choice of keeping Bitcoin layer 1 limited. So, but whereas in
you
Ethereum,
can barely
it's much
build
easier
Lightning
to build
Network on it.
Exactly. So it's always just trade-offs, and it's what you optimize for. And as you said, there's kind of like a Goldilocks zone. I guess that's what you're probably alluding to with that, y-axis, x-axis stuff. But there is kind of like a Goldilocks zone that you want to be in, where you have the maximum utility, you have a way to maintain censorship resistance, decentralization, credible neutrality, and you also have kind of like people coming after you, nation states coming after you, and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I think Ethereum isn't there today. I think Ethereum will be there in the future. And as you said, you'll discuss the solutions on the podcast with Justin Drake. I'm sure he discussed all the things that I would bring up anyway. But when we get to that point and they actually like work as advertised, obviously things are good in theory. We'll see how they work in practice. Then Ethereum could be considered like fitting in that Goldilocks zone. But I think Ethereum is the closest out of anything right now, because the only other blockchain that I consider to actually be truly decentralized is Bitcoin, and it can't do what Ethereum can do. So Ethereum really has no competition here right now. If there was another smart contract chain that was similar to Ethereum, then yes, but nothing even comes close. Like people will go on about Ethereum and like how their stake centralization within different exchanges and staking providers and all that sorts of stuff. But the other chains, other proof of stake chains, they're all depots, right? Like pretty much a different flavor of depots. Right. They would be so easy to censor.
Solana
like,
gets
overnight.
Censored by accident when it gets spammed and has to go down.
Yeah. So like this is what I mean. It's kind of funny where Ethereum is just proving the fact that like it's actually censorship resistant with this sort of stuff. Just because some miners and validators may drop transactions doesn't really mean anything. Like I think, I saw some math the other day. Post-merge, 90% of validators can be censoring your transactions. And if only 10% are accepting it, you'll still get your transaction into a block within like 20 or 30 blocks or something. And blocks are 12 seconds. So it's like a few minutes. So even if the majority of the network is censoring you for whatever reason, you're still going to be able to get your transaction in. And I did some kind of like some head theory on this on the refill the other day. I don't know if this is accurate, but it makes sense. I think that even if every single validator on the network is censoring you and your own validator is the only one not censoring you, you would still only have to wait until you were proposing a block. You'd put your transaction into that block, which may take months, right? It'd still take a lot. But in theory, I believe you should still be able to get your transaction in. Right. But I'm not 100% on that. But still, it's kind of like
that checks out. Like the worst case scenario is that you have to have 16 ether. You would spin up, and so like you have to. That's the minimum threshold to spin up a rocket pool node, and then you'd have to wait like a month of time, and or like maybe.
I mean, it's random.
It's
but
random.
Like on average, it's not very often.
On average, it can take a long ass time. But like. Yeah. The fact that like that is the absolute like doomsday worst case scenario, and like there's still nothing stopping you from writing to Ethereum under the end of that is like still pretty good. Which I mean actually like that kind of sounds pretty terrible. It's like wait, I need 16 ETH.
It's terrible,
but like the degree of severity that we would have to get to that point is insane.
But if like every single validator is censoring you, then it stands to reason that they would also be censoring not just at the block proposal level, but at the attestation level as well, which means that they wouldn't attest to your block and it would probably just reorg, right? Yeah. Because if they're not attesting to your block, they're attesting to another one, and the chain logically, I think, would reorg around you, and your block would just get orphaned. I think, I think that's how it works.
Yeah, well, we don't want that.
Yeah. No.
Okay, so there's another question, and again, for all the YouTube people that are watching, if you're in the Bankless inner circle or the Daily Gwei Discord, there's a link to the Zoom where we have some people hanging out. So Yash asks, I agree that retail is ignorant and unaware. We're talking about back to the merge stuff. But what about institutions? I am sure that they have access to all of this info, yet the price is where it is. Do you think that they are equally unaware as well? Like, my quick answer here is that, like, well, institutions are just made up of people. And so like the only real difference is that like an institution might be paid more. It's like and have more resources to go do more research, but still at the end of the day, just like they're still made up of people at the end of the day. So like they have the more resources to go and research stuff. But what are your thoughts, Anthony?
I have a very short answer to this. Look at all the institutions that blew up from the Terra collapse, even though for years people knew that Terra was going to collapse. Like,
I don't think they did.
My point is, what do you mean?
I don't think they did know it was going to collapse.
But okay. So there's knowing as in like the information is available to you, may have read it. And then there's knowing as in taking the information on board, understanding it, processing it, and actually coming to a conclusion from it. I can tell someone, hey, the issuance reduction post-merge is going to be 80, 85%, whatever it is right now. And that means that and it's technically going to be 0 for 6 to 12 months post-merge. That means nothing to people in a vacuum, right? Then you have to discuss everything that goes along with that. Basically saying, well, it changes, as Hal Press likes to put it, it changes the structural flows of ETH as an asset. It makes ETH trade lighter. And then you would have to define what trade lighter means. It depends who you're talking to. But I think when people think about knowledge, they think that you can just read something and automatically that's right. Your knowledge now. You understand it. You understand the implications of it. But I don't think that's how it works. And it doesn't matter if it's an institution or an individual. I think, as you said, institutions are made up of individuals. So if they're not focusing on it, if they're not understanding it, then they're not going to make the trade. And also, as I said before, they're more prone to not ignoring something, but like waiting for something because of the risk, right? They don't want to get into something which could potentially lose them money because of the fact that they are managing other people's money. So there's a massive difference between me and you buying ETH and an institution buying ETH for the merge, right? Like we're happy to take the risk. A lot of institutions are not happy to take that risk.
Yeah. And there's been other people that are like money managers that I know personally that like command tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on crypto Twitter. And then also just like other money managers listen to these same people. And they're like on Twitter asking questions that kind of like imply that like you don't really know anything about the merge and all the actual facts of like the fundamentals. So I wouldn't really give institutions like too much credit beyond like the individuals of crypto Twitter, I'd say.
Yeah. It's funny whenever I talk to someone or see someone talking in a thread and they get the most basic things wrong about Ethereum, and you think that they're supposed to like be smart and know all this sort of stuff. It just, if you spend all your time in Ethereum, you get bogged down, you just start assuming that everyone is on your level, when in reality, most people are not, because it's very hard to keep up with what's happening in Ethereum. And these people don't have the time a lot of the time, right? And they'll just have the surface level
like
knowledge.
God, like people, because I mean, you and I are like in front of our computers for like 12, 16 hours a fucking day. And my job is to like research for stuff ahead for podcasts. And so like I have the privilege of being like, oh, I get to like read stuff about Ethereum for like 16 hours a day. And then I get frustrated that like other people don't understand what the merge is. I'm like, oh yeah, wait a second. I should be a little bit more like sympathetic here.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it's just natural for us to kind of fall into that. I mean, even with me doing my daily show, I literally have to keep up with everything bleeding edge. I mean, I enjoy it, of course, but it's kind of like the way I think about it is, if I was to go into another ecosystem that wasn't Ethereum, I'd probably be very noob in that ecosystem. I would have no idea what's going on. No idea. Like, that's the thing. So that's the way I kind of view it. And I wouldn't even know
really
where to
understand
start
how Polkadot works.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you don't know what's going on. Like, these teams aren't not doing anything. It's just that, I mean, for one reason or another, we don't keep up with them. For me, it's just I don't have time to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they're not really building anything that I think really interests me too much. There are things here and there, but again, like, it's the same as someone being in the Polkadot ecosystem and not paying attention to Ethereum. It's just, it's a time thing as well. Like, you can't pay attention to everything. You have to pick your battles.
Yeah, totally. Since we're about 30 minutes through this, thanks everyone for tuning in to this live stream. Anthony and I do this every now and then. If you're not familiar with Anthony, that would be crazy. But if that's you, I've just put a YouTube link to his Daily Gwei YouTube account, where he does a video every single day about Ethereum and what's going on in the milieu of crypto Twitter, and also writes every single day on his newsletter. So you can go check him out there. More technical, more fringe, nuanced content than what we do at Bankless, because he does it every single day, and it's strictly about the Ethereum ecosystem. So I frequently use the Daily Gwei to stay up to date with some of the more frontier level stuff of the Ethereum ecosystem. What should we talk about next?
I think Christina's got another question for us in the Zoom chat.
Okay. Going back to the decentralization / scalability of chains conversation, what about Cosmos? Is it a real competitor to Ethereum? So I've been talking to two Cosmos people because we're actually doing a Cosmos episode after like this whole merge phase gets over. Imagine doing a Cosmos episode like right during the middle of the merge. But like we're having Sunny and Zaki on to like explain like the Cosmos vision, and like I think both of them agree that like the end state of Cosmos and the end vision of Ethereum are like the same things. And so that and so Cosmos gets a lot of credit for like this modular app app chain idea where like you can spin up your own blockchain and not be beholden to like the Ethereum layer 1 and you get like a little bit more sovereignty and freedom. But like the conclusion is still like shared security at the end of the day. And like these are the Cosmos OGs who are like, the Ethereum conclusion and the Cosmos conclusion. They start from the same spot. They diverge in how they get there, but then they conclude at the same spot. And so at that point, you really just want to like take who's in the lead. And Ethereum, like it's a function of like what's harder, shared security or spinning up a bunch of app chains. And I think the Ethereum model of like putting monetary premium into your asset is way harder that's the hardest thing to do is put monetary premium into your asset. Everything else is not as hard. And so, I mean, is it a real competitor to Ethereum? I would say it's the most real competitor that's out there. Is it a real competition? I still don't think so. But I will give Cosmos like, it's like the greatest number 2 to Ethereum that exists, I'd say.
I think on a long enough time frame in crypto, most layer 1 chains are like gonna fail, and the ones that succeed are gonna end up looking very similar to each other. I think, and by succeed I mean like a chain that succeeds to be credibly decentralized and be secure and actually have developers and things like that. And I mean, you're right. The Cosmos vision. I mean, they have. I think where they fundamentally differ from Ethereum is that sovereignty over like the chain, right? They believe that the app chains should be able to be sovereign and have a choice of whether they plug into the kind of Cosmos hub or not, right? For that shared security, which is a fine thing to believe. But I personally don't think that vision is the correct one, or don't think that path is the correct one. I strongly believe that the layer 2, the rollup centric roadmap is better for a number of different reasons. And as you said, like there's also the monetary side of things. Like the Atom token, it's not even trying to be money, right? It's not even, it's not even, exactly. It's not even trying to accrue value. So like that is, I mean, to me, that's the most important thing at the end of the day, not just because, bags go up and profits go up, but that's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the fact that it all comes back to the asset at the end of the day. The asset is what you use to secure the chain, right? It's what you use to have as money within the ecosystem and people use as money. You need a truly decentralized money. You can't just rely on centralized stablecoins, as we've seen. They'll very hastily use their blacklist function when required, and decentralized stablecoins are very hard to build, especially at scale. We've seen that play out too. So you need a truly decentralized asset at the heart of your ecosystem, and you need it to actually accrue a monetary value, monetary premium. You want people to hold it, and you want that to be like a feedback loop in your ecosystem. So I think that's like, as much as I think eventually Cosmos will probably look like Ethereum in that, with the shared security that they're doing with the hub, and then you have like these spokes being the app chains. I don't understand why an app chain would want to plug in for shared security if they're trying to be sovereign. It's kind of, it seems like a bit of a roundabout way to just get to the rollup centric roadmap in my mind. It seems like a long way around. Like if we're taking the short path, they're taking the long path, right?
Right. And if you do the path of making your asset money later, like the reason why Ethereum, one big reason why Ethereum grew so much more than Cosmos is like Ether. Like you get to tell the story of Ether. Like people like buying stuff in crypto. It seems to be like the thing that we do the most is we buy and discuss tokens. And so like if you get a lot of focal attention on like your asset, your L1 asset, then there's so many like positive second order consequences of that.
Exactly.
What else was I going to say? That was it.
No, I mean, I think that like people will often look at the tokens and people talking about driving values of the tokens, and all they'll think is, oh, you're just trying to pump your bags. When really it's not about that. It's literally about all the things that I outlined.
It's a little about that.
And Yeah, but the thing is that like we're harnessing like
It's for a
the
reason. It's for a
speculation.
purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. We're harnessing the speculation within crypto that already exists, that is going to continue to exist, and is the only product market fit that we've found so far for any of the stuff that we're building. We're harnessing that for the good of the ecosystem.
Right.
And I think that when you have like an aversion to that and you set that culture, it becomes very, very hard to tack it on later. Like you can't just. I mean, Ethereum arguably did it, but it did it at like a very opportune time because I don't think Ethereum was considered to be like a monetary asset until 2017, until the ICO mania. Before then, it was like a very hush hush about it. People were like, "Oh no, we don't talk about ETH as like a money, right? It's gas, exactly. It's just used to pay fees on the network."
It powers
then the ICO
applications.
boom happened. Yes, yeah, exactly. And then the ICO boom happened like a couple of years after the network went live, and we had the rest is history. Right, 2018, 2019, we cemented, I think, ETH as an asset, or we memed it, and then 2020 ETH went up, and it just like went on from there. So yeah, it's going to become harder and harder because you not only have like these other layer ones like Cosmos, you have them competing with all the other layer ones now, right? Like, and there's only so many monies that can exist. Like only BTC and ETH have been able to accrue that monetary premium because they're the only ones that are like truly decentralized, the only ones who have optimized for it. All the other chains, they're not even trying. They're actually not even trying to optimize for it. And if they think they can do that later, they're in for a shock because I don't think it can happen later.
Yeah. You have to do it sooner rather than later because that's how you keep things decentralized. The thing I was gonna say earlier is that like the Cosmos like attitude is that like there's all this MEV on the Ethereum chains, and like Uniswap, Compound, they pay so much of they leak so much value to MEV people, and so like they pay a lot of like tax to Ether, and so like that's bad because like Ether is like this extractive rent seeking entity that's like seeking all this value out of these apps, and that's a bug. And I'm like, sure, it's a fair perspective to have, and it's a bug from that perspective, but like as soon as you buy Ether, it turns into a feature. Like just buy Ether and the problem goes away. And like also you also have the best of both worlds too, where you get the MEV on the layer 1 and that goes to Ether, but you have the app specific chains on like ZK rollup layer 3s, and also with 4844 you reduce a lot of the layer 2's payment towards like Ether the asset, and so Ethereum gets all of the MEV and puts it into Ether the asset on the layer 1. It does it a lot less on the layer 2, and it basically does it at a 0 level on the layer 3. So like pick where you want to inject yourself in the Ethereum ecosystem depending on like how much MEV you are willing to pay to the Ethereum layer 1.
Well, that's it. And if they're making the argument that there should be like a sovereign uni chain, well, I mean, why not just do a layer 2 uni chain? Like you can still have the MEV come into the uni because you have like, I don't know, staking the uni token to capture fee revenue / MEV on the layer 2 uni chain. You wouldn't need an app chain or sovereign app chain for that. I'm personally not convinced that sovereignty is worth the trade-offs of security, like because you lose so much security going for sovereignty. And I don't see where the major benefits are. Like you get some more control over your layer, but at the end of the day, as a layer 2, you have total control over the protocol as well. If you want to keep it centralized at the beginning, you can do that. All you have to do is pay Ethereum a little bit in ETH fees for its block space, right? You don't even have to pay that much. Post danksharding, you'll be paying pennies. You won't be paying hardly anything to the chain. So I don't understand where this massive benefit of sovereignty thesis comes from, really. I really do think that a roll-up gives you everything that you need when it comes to kind of being an app chain, so to speak. Maybe not today though, because look, to be honest, today the rollups aren't decentralized, and there's no way for someone to just build their own app chain using a decentralized set of rollup tools. There will be in the future, right? Like I'm not talking about today. I'm talking about like it is possible. It's just that we're not there right now, and that's partly why DYDX went from, I think, their roll up to the Cosmos chain, because they want to decentralize, but they can't right now because Starkware's technology is not ready for that. But it will be in the future. It's just a matter of timing.
Yeah. Moving on to another question. Yash says, what are your takes or counter arguments on the recent "Is the Merge overhyped" article on Bankless? Did you read that one, Anthony?
I haven't yet. I saw it in my inbox, but I haven't gotten to it yet. No.
All right. Let me speed run you through it, and I'll let you give your takes. Narrative 1.
Was it the one by Geordie?
Yes. Yeah, the one by Geordie.
Okay, yeah.
Let's see. Narrative number 1, buy the rumor, buy the news. ETH price to spiral up into a super cycle. So this is like the Arthur Hayes, like it's reflexive. And so like when price goes up, causes price to go up. Let's see, what are the main head points? I think he's just like it's a buy the rumor, sell the news kind of thing. Narrative number 2, the triple halvening drives ETH into a deflationary supply crisis. But then he basically says like, well, the transaction fees are super low now. And so because the transaction fees have gone down from the bull market, like it's actually not going to be all that big of a deal. And then the third one
But why would there be a deflationary crisis to begin with? Does he understand that like there's still inflation coming to the network and ETH is divisible by like 18 decimal places?
The crisis word, I think isn't right. Like he's saying that the narrative is that the triple halvening will drive ETH into like this deflationary. It's gonna be great. Like supply crisis. Yeah, is like, that's he shouldn't have written like that. He said, but he's like, here's the narrative. Everyone's super bullish because it's going deflationary. But then his counter argument says like, well, actually, we're actually not going to be deflationary because the gas fees aren't that high. And so like that's the argument number 2.
We actually are for 6 to 12 months technically because no new supply comes to market.
And then narrative number 3, staked ETH will be a yield seeker sensation. But then he's saying again, like the yield's not going to be that high. If like 20 million Ether gets staked, like the actual real yield is going to be like 3 or 4. You want to take your thoughts?
But we have 20 million ETH locked up.
Yeah, that's right. Like, yeah, you're missing the part where like a bunch of Ether gets locked up from the secondary market.
The yield. So the thing is that the yield is ETH denominated, right? It is not USD denominated. Right. So if the yield is 3%, but the ETH price goes up 10x because all this ETH is getting staked, and like it's just like it doesn't matter that your yield is only 3%, right? So I think I get the line of reasoning that he's trying to use here, but I feel like he might be grasping at straws a little bit, trying to find trying to find counter arguments, because I've thought about these as well, and there's always a counterbalance to it. As I just said, like if more ETH gets staked, that's more ETH being locked up. That means there's more demand for ETH, which pushes the price up. Yes, exactly. And it's a balancing act. Like as the yield goes down, so the yield will be at a level where people are comfortable staking for that yield, right? If the yield goes too low, people will withdraw their stake, then the yield will go up, right? So it's not like that's a locked in thing. And because it's not quote unquote real yield, right? Where it's not like people paying you the yield, the protocol is paying you the ETH. It's inflationary, right? It's regulated by the protocol. It's not regulated by the kind of like demand for speculative kind of like activity, right? Demand for borrowing and all that, and leverage and that sort of stuff. It's regulated in protocol by the protocol rules and ETH denominated. So yeah, I just think it's a balanced system. I don't think that's a bear case that the yield is going to go down. Like some people are going to stake no matter what the yield is because they just want to stack as much ETH as possible because they believe ETH is going to go up a lot more than what it is. And as the dollar value goes up, like if people are using staking as a passive income source, it's because it's ETH denominated and USD price of ETH goes up, it's still going to be worth it for them, right?
Yeah. So the argument, I'll take the gas fees one where he, let's see, what was he saying was like the bull case. In the top of the bull market, we were like, oh my God, if we merged right now, ETH yield would be like 15%. And that's when like Gwei gas fees were like 300 plus. And so I think he really builds off of his, off of that like kind of paradigm. And it's like, well, it's actually not going to be that bullish, but we've priced that in. At least on Bankless, we've been saying like the new number is something like 6% with once you get MEV. I think we maybe have said something as high as 7.2%. I think if we merge right now, it's like basically 4% yield right now, and then if we merge right now, it would be something like 5.5 with MEV. And so like we've been saying that these numbers have come down, and so like I think he was going back to a period in history where it was like the gas fees were super high, and so like if we're call it like with the issuance, even though we can't sell at the moment, with the issuance, like the interest reduction will go down to 0.4%, a little bit above 0.4% per year. And then you add the very small amount of burn that we have. It gets cut by 50% down to 0.2%. So like even with a small burn, you cut issuance by 50% because we're already so close to zero. But like if the bearish case is like we're actually not deflationary, net deflationary, and we're actually still inflationary, and that's bearish, like we'll be at 0.2%. Bitcoin, 1.9%. Solana 6.7%, Avalanche 5.4%, Dogecoin 3.6%, Cardano coming in at 1.6%. I mean, and then we go down further down the list of coins that don't matter, like Litecoin and EOS.
Yeah, but it's also the okay. So this is what frustrates me. It's all reflexive. The entire thing is reflexive. Once the bull market comes back, once it starts going up properly again, the fees are going to go up again, right? We're going to be burning ETH. We're going to be post-merge. We're going to be deflationary during those periods. It's going to all feed off of each other. Narrative reflexivity, price reflexivity, and it's just going to go absolutely nuts, right? ETH as an asset has lots of natural demand. And we're not just talking about a supply crunch. We're talking about a supply crunch into natural demand. Right. So immediately post-merge, the yields are going to go up because the tips are going to go to stakers and the MEV is going to go to stakers. Then what's going to happen is people are going to see the yield go up to maybe 5 or 6%. They're going to be like, wow, I want to stake. They're going to buy ETH to stake it. They're going to put it into staking. And that is and the fact that there's net zero issuance coming to market because of the withdrawals not being enabled, the ETH price, it's going to reflexively go up. Then the narrative is going to catch up to it and it's going to push it up even more. And this is not investment advice, it's just my thinking around it. But then you can look at the other way. Say the bear market hits again, right? Gas fees drop 90%. We're not deflationary anymore, blah, 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 whatever, right? People withdraw, stake and sell. That's fine, but it always reaches an equilibrium point, right? And the equilibrium point is going to be a much softer landing than it would be under proof of work because there is so much less sell pressure, right? Under proof of work, there is enormous sell pressure, like especially the higher you go. As Hal Press mentioned, that's USD denominated, right, for them, because the fact that the matter is that the ETH inflation, the BTC inflation or issuance stays the same, but the USD price goes up, which means that you need more USD demand to come in to offset the extreme minor sell pressure denominated in USD. Whereas post-merge with proof of stake, it's going to be much, much, much less. And it doesn't matter if it's deflationary or not. It's going to be reflexive both ways. All it is about softening the fall, softening the bear markets and making ETH trade lighter than any other asset out there. I think the only asset that it would even come close to ETH is BNB. Because BNB has natural demand from Binance, has a controlled supply, and you can go and look at the chart. And so, yeah, well, you can go, but still, you can go look at the chart, right? It trades extremely light. It just dumps less than other things.
It goes up.
Yeah, it just goes up, right?
Yeah,
it floats exactly. So, and BNB doesn't even have a narrative attached to it. Like no one talks about BNB ever. Like I never see anyone talking about it.
They do. Well, I was listening to his episode with on the Stacks podcast with Luke Martin. And he was making a good point that I do agree with, is that like these like 300, 400 Gwei gas fees was actually closer to a one-time thing than it is like systemic. And it's because we just had super unoptimized DeFi for a while. We had terribly unoptimized like NFT mints and like these weird auctions. And it was just like, it was just inefficient. And people have figured that out and like learned how to optimize this stuff and like control gas, because overpaying for gas is always bad. So I do take that point that like, I think these like the era of like 400 Gwei, 300 Gwei gas prices is probably not coming back. And if they do,
but we don't even need anywhere near that high for deflationary ETH, right?
Yeah. If we could sustain like 50, that would be. I think that's
not even just 50. I'm pretty sure at current ETH staked, we only need like 15 to be deflationary.
Right. Yeah, but like I would like to be at like Mach 2 or Mach 3 ideally. So that's like 30 to 45 Gwei.
But the thing is that it's hard to tell. Like, yeah, okay, I understand the reasoning behind not going back up to those gas prices because of efficiencies, because of layer 2s, all that sorts of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But a lot of the fees on layer 1 are driven by MEV and driven by arbitrage and stuff like that. So if we have a full-blown bull market again, where everyone's trading every shitcoin under the sun, right, on Ethereum, they're still going to be doing it on Ethereum layer 1. There's still so much liquidity on Ethereum layer 1.
Yeah, there always will be.
I still think. Yeah. And it's the most secure layer at the end of the day. Like a lot of the whales don't care about those fees at all. So
I don't ever see a layer 2 becoming more liquid than the Ethereum layer 1. At least with like stable coins and ETH. Like Ether and stable coins and maybe like the biggest DeFi blue chips will always find the most liquidity on the layer 1.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about always. This is the thing, like, it's kind of hard to tell because these layer 2s can basically become on par with Ethereum in terms of decentralization, like remove the admin key, have multiple sequences, have the escape hatch in place, all that sorts of stuff. So then big money would be comfortable putting, their massive ETH bags or massive stablecoin bags into these things, because they know that's where the users are. They know that's where the retail users are. Because on layer 1, it's whale versus whale, right? But on layer 2, it's whale versus and retail. Like you have everyone kind of like there. So
but we call the Ethereum layer 1 like the settlement layer, right? And settlement layer by definition is like also has to be the liquidity layer. All right, so here's my argument. If we're going to be comfortable putting our ETH on layer 2s, I don't have any argument with that. But like, it's either like the shelling point of the Ethereum layer 1 or like which of the 7 or 8 layer 2s are we going to have in the next over 2 years? Like that's going to fracture. So there's not going to be like the liquidity layer 2. It's going to be the liquidity layer 1. And then there's also going to be all these like applications that are going to call the Ethereum layer 1 their headquarters, like the big boys, the big apps, the MakerDAOs, the Aves, the compounds, the Uniswaps, and those blue chip tokens are also going to predominantly be on the layer 1 where they're like headquartered. And so like you're going to have the most ether on the layer 1. You're going to have all the stable coins on the layer 1 because where else are they going to issue them? And then you're going to have like the big DeFi blue chips predominantly on the layer 1. And it's like, all that trading fee, all the trading activity, the volume on layer 2s, Uniswap on Arbitrum, Optimism, like the one that's being built on Cairo right now in Starknet, like they'll have less liquidity, but then they'll get routed through like the Uniswap on the layer 1. And so like the yield for LPing is probably going to be higher on the layer 1.
Yeah, but you could see a world where there's just like so many users on some of these layer 2s that they collectively are able to get that liquidity up to similar levels to layer 1 just because the sheer quantity of users. Because if you have like
users and volume of trading volume is different though.
No, it is, but I just would caution saying never. I would say that there is a possibility.
I'm a little bit of a bombastic dude.
No. But I'm just like I think that there's a good chance that it could happen. But I don't disagree with what you're saying. Right. I just think that like it's too early to even like really know with any kind of confidence or say with any confidence right now.
I will claim it. I think it's the default case.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. I think, like, as I said, like whales don't mind, and I'm talking mega whales. I'm not just talking like millionaires. I'm talking like, tens, hundreds, billions of dollars. Like if they're moving that kind of size around, I mean, they're not going to mind paying a $1,000 fee. To send ETH around on layer 1 for it to cost you $1,000, Gwei would have to be in the really tens of thousands, I think. Or ETH would have to be very, very expensive. Yeah. So I totally agree with that. But I think the layer 2s are going to surprise people, definitely, just by the sheer fact that they're going to appeal to a massive amount of users. So it kind of becomes like quantity, right?
Yeah, putting in a last call for questions, both for the YouTube and also the what are we in? Zoom chat. I kind of like this Zoom chat feature. We got some people in here. Anything else that's on your mind that you want to talk about?
I mean, so like a lot, but like I've talked about it a lot already. Yeah. I think the funny thing is like the censorship stuff, the conversations there can literally be endless because it's not an objective thing, right? Like when you talk about social slashing and then social slashing for specific things and specific thresholds, it gets really messy really quickly. And I liked Eric Wall's
such a good blog
post about
when I read that, I was like, I'm bitter that I didn't write this.
Yeah. And it actually got me thinking in terms of kind of like, if I could look into every reality where this sorts of stuff happened, what do I see in these realities, right? So you have reality 1, it's the normal Ethereum chain, right? Just continuing on as normal, no censorship, whatever. You have reality 2. The censorship begins at the block proposer level. Like a lot of the network starts dropping transactions or just doesn't include transactions to a certain address or from a certain address or whatever, right? Reality 3, the validators stop attesting to certain chains, the chains split off, and then you have OFAC chain and real Ethereum chain, right? Where do people go in this reality? Well, in my mind, like I don't think the vast majority of developers would touch OFAC chain. Right. The core developers would leave before they touched OFAC chain, right? So you have them exactly. So you have them remaining on the Ethereum chain, but then you have on the OFAC chain like the USDC, for example, and you have like some big stakers on there. But the problem is that like they're going to cave. because that OFAC chain is just going to be worthless. Like no one's going to use it. The token's going to like be worthless. There's going to be so much exactly, and they're going to be staked. Exactly, and they're going to be slashed on the real Ethereum chain, right? So if they want to come back, they're probably going to get slashed anyway for doing that in the first place, right? So in all the realities that I can think of, the only reality that makes sense is just one Ethereum. Don't censor at the attestation level. If you have to censor at the, don't include the transactions at the block proposal level, that's fine because the tech allows you to do that. But we're going to fix that eventually. We're going to introduce these technologies. As you said, you're going to talk about that with Justin Drake on the podcast. So I just, and that's what Eric Wall's article got me thinking about. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. Like you can look through all the different possibilities and come to the same conclusion every single time. Because at the end of the day, these networks are social networks. They are community run networks. Like if the community rejects a chain, then it's not going to be that chain. I mean, look at the Bitcoin Cash thing. Like Bitcoin Cash is not Bitcoin because the people didn't recognize it as Bitcoin. Simple as that. That's literally all it is.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't want Bitcoin Cash to be Bitcoin. Yes, okay, there was a thing that Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin, but like no one bought into that except the Bitcoin Cash people. Everyone else said that, well, even the non-Bitcoiners said, well, this is Bitcoin, right? If I go to sell this thing, I'm going to get, 20 whatever Bitcoin is today. I'm going to get $20,000 for my BTC, but for my BCH, I'm going to get, a few $100s, whatever the price is for it today. I don't even know how much it is. So the same would happen with an Ethereum fork. Like just because this OFAC chain may have the stable coins and some DeFi on it doesn't mean shit, because it's going to just be unviable long term. No one's going to build on it. It's going to trend towards zero. No one's going to care about it, and it's just going to be this bank chain, as you said, like it's or Fed chain. Like it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, exactly. So I think that's what a lot of people miss. The
Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin thing. What that made me think of is like there was definitely more like small blockers, Bitcoiners as we know them, than there were Bitcoin Cash people, big blockers. Not like that much more. Like it was actually very contentious. Maybe it was like 2-to-1, maybe 3-to-1 in Bitcoiners to Bitcoin Cashers in like total numbers. But it was really like the silent onlookers who didn't have like a fight, a bone in the fight, a say in the bone in the fight. It was a silent majority that was like, I don't really care. I just want to use Bitcoin. And there are more Bitcoiners that are saying, and it's also the higher market cap, and they were saying that one's Bitcoin, so that one's Bitcoin. And it's the people who don't care, that don't have an opinion, that just want to, give me the normal Bitcoin, please. And then like they just like as a silent majority, just like, okay, well, I think that one's the normal Bitcoin, and they all pick that one because around that one is like 3 times as many Bitcoiners than Bitcoin Cashers. And it's all like a narrative game, right? It's all a social story. And the amazing thing about crypto, I don't know if I've ever told you my crypto joke before, but my crypto joke is that crypto makes 3 main products: money, Bitcoin and ETH, yield, and content. Like crypto people love content. It's insatiable. Like they will just consume all the content. And so the market has come to serve this content provided by community members for community members. And so it's the community members who control the media of the communities. And so like there's no way that if we like make like the Fed chain versus Ethereum that we're going to like make Fed chain the canonical version of Ethereum, because like people like the Daily Gwei and Bankless and crypto Twitter and everyone else would be like, oh yeah, this is the real Ethereum. And everyone else is like, oh, okay, that one's the real Ethereum. And so like who cares about like these institutions that like write blog posts and say like, well, we're going with the bank chain. It's like, well, no, the people tell the story here. The people are in control of this narrative.
Exactly. If you don't have social,
yes, that one. Dog in the fight.
If you don't have social buy-in, you have nothing, basically. Like at the end of the day, this doesn't just apply to crypto. This applies to anything. Think about religions. They need you to buy into the story, the narrative, the social, for you to the same is true for a political party. You need to buy into what they're selling to you, their positions on things, their policies, right? Democracy itself. You need to believe that the country that you're in and the democracy that you're in is legitimate and that it's actually being followed, right? As soon as that starts to break down, the people just by sheer kind of like us having to conform to reality, right? We can be as delusional as we want, but eventually we have to accept reality at some point, right? And have to come together and say, well, this is the reality of the situation. This is not what we want. This is what we want. And that's why I think like certain things always trend in a certain direction over longer, you know, the longest kind of like time path. So I think the most interesting point that I can think of is the media stuff as well. When it comes to the social layer, is that me and you and Ryan and whoever else does crypto media, we're not going to say that the OFAC chain is the real Ethereum.
Yeah.
Like, and you know, it's just not going to happen.
Pay me enough money to do that. Yeah.
Exactly. So that I think is very, very important. And you know, I'm sure you saw Superfizz sharing the staking from home setups lately on Twitter.
Those are so awesome. It's so great.
Do you think any of those people are gonna stake on the OFAC chain? No.
The guy running an Ethereum validator from his like mobile home that he like drives around the Pacific Northwest, that guy does not care about OFAC chain. Like, no way.
Exactly. So if anyone thinks that, you know, you'd have majority community buy-in on an OFAC chain just because the institutions are there, it doesn't matter, right? Like,
we don't trust the institutions anyways.
Exactly. I think there are enough people in Ethereum that don't kind of like subscribe to that, don't trust those kind of like institutions, and don't care about that sort of stuff, but care more about Ethereum. And the funny thing is, I actually think that what the other communities say is the real Ethereum counts for a lot too. Like, would the Bitcoiners, right? Not the Bitcoin maximalists, because we know that they're trying to play games with it.
They'll just pick the opposite one.
Yeah. On purpose, so like, exactly. But would the Bitcoiners say that the OFAC chain is the real Ethereum? I don't think they would. I think they would say, and would the other L1s say that? No, I don't think they would. Even though they're competing with Ethereum, they're not going to say that this is the Ethereum chain. So
a certain number of banks would even agree with the people. Like some certain entities, some certain institutions will like actually like understand this story. Yeah,
exactly. And the thing is, if the OFAC chain is like, I'm just using an example here. If it's just Coinbase and Kraken, well, they have to convince Binance to go along with them, right? Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Binance
no, exactly. Yeah. So it's an unworkable thing. Like, as I said, those realities you can look into. There's only one where it works for everyone, and that's Ethereum as it is today.
And I think the biggest argument that lands with me is that if OFAC wants to make OFAC Ethereum, they have to make their own clients for that. Because the Ethereum devs aren't going to make OFAC clients. Like, no fucking way. And so,
yeah, exactly.
Can you see the government making an open source Ethereum client? Like, no way, dude. They can't do that.
Yeah,
They'd be so bad at that.
I mean, they'll find someone to do it for them, but
it'll be a shitty client. They'll have bugs in it all the time.
Exactly.
It'll go down just like all government's websites do.
So and then at that point, why even just do it Ethereum? Like, with all the trade-offs that Ethereum technology has, why not just create a database?
Right.
And
you
see
do a
how
CBDC, right? Yeah.
Just do a CBDC.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah. I just I think this is like level 100 crypto. Like, you have to be in this ecosystem for a while to understand all of what we just talked about, because it is not something that gets taught to you. It's something that you learn from being in crypto and learn from the experiences of being in crypto.
Right. Here's Anthony Sassano's YouTube account one more time in the chat. We do this every now and then. Last time we did this was a couple months ago. It's Anthony from Daily Gwei, Bankless, I stream. Anthony, it's been great hanging out with you on this Friday evening for you.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. I'm just about to put the latest Daily Gwei episode live as well. So if people are itching for more content once we finish here, you can go watch today's refuel.
Oh, the content never ends. Okay.
Nope.
I've been looking at your computer behind you. Where does it end? I actually can't figure that out.
This is like the back here where my finger is right now. That's the back, and then that's the front.
Is it absolutely massive?
Yeah, it's huge. It's like a meter tall, and
it's like 4 feet tall, right?
Yeah, I don't know what freedom units it is,
three feet in a meter,
it's massive, dude. Yeah,
okay,
it's absolutely huge.
Okay, I was thinking I was seeing like the reflection or something, but no, it's just of course, it's a 2x4 sets of fans. Of course, it's fucking massive. Jesus.
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it goes like higher than where my camera can see it right now. It's like up here. So yeah, it's massive.
That's a cool.
It's
machine.
actually it actually is made to fit 2 whole computers in it. So you can put 2 motherboards, 2 graphics cards, 2 RAM, like sets of RAM and everything in it on like this side. But I haven't done that. I've just got one in there.
I would imagine the Ethereum Master Node looks something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right. Goodbye, everyone. We're done here. Peace.
Cool, man. Thanks, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.